Come on in, welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're looking at my pre-season analysis of the Survivor 43 cast. If you haven't watched my pre-season cast assessments before, I do things a little differently. Not only do I look at the cast and try to make evaluations about their gameplay and potential longevity, but I also assign pre-season cast awards to each player. Think of it like Survivor yearbook superlatives. But instead of most likely to succeed, it's most likely to win the game. And I think mine are way more fun. High school awards usually don't have a first boot award. I'll be using the official cast bios, the get to know ya videos, and Mike Bloom's interviews for Parade.com as the basis of my judgment. The links for those are in the description, so go read those and give him some clicks. All that said, let's hand out some awards for the cast of Survivor 43, from my choice for first boot to a winner pick I think is gonna surprise you, and everything in between. Let's start with the Coco Tribe and hand out the coveted Francesca Hoagie Award for most likely to be the first boot to 26-year-old fashion designer Cassidy Clark. Alright, firstly, let's just all acknowledge this as a top 10 cast photo of all time. She didn't have to go so hard. A great cast photo aside, I'm really not feeling a long stay for Cassidy, which is unfortunate because she was originally on Survivor 41, only to get dropped when COVID caused the season to get delayed. She says the universe is on her side and put her back on Survivor, and that's kinda why I'm worried about her longevity. I'm just really not sure the rest of her tribe is going to vibe with her on the same groovy wavelength. They're just not striking me as a spiritual bunch. The winner she identifies the most with is Nick Wilson. At first I was like, that's a great inspired pick. But then it's only because Cassidy picked Nick in a fantasy draft. Well, I guess the stars aligned on that one. I'm sensing that Cassidy is going to have a tough time connecting with the rest of her tribe right out of the gate. I think if she makes it far, it will be as a number for a more manipulative player, but I think the universe is manifesting an easy consensus boot for her tribe early on, and she's it. Speaking of early boots, let's give the Zeke Smith Award for most likely to catch big movitis to 36-year-old project manager Gio Bustamante. I'm also very worried for Gio. I'm really getting pre-merge overplaying flameout vibes from him, a la Jeremy Crawford or, dare I say it, Zane Knight? Reading Gio's bio, I get the impression he feels he has something to prove. He had to leave his job to go on Survivor, he talks about being a shorter guy, and he says he used to be really shy and insecure in his past. I love his story of coming into his own as a gay man and becoming confident in his own skin. If he's just the great guy he is in his day-to-day life, I think he'll be fine. But he seems way too concerned with proving how big of a strategic threat he is and how great of TV he is. He literally says that his favorite moment in Survivor history is when Eric gave up immunity, then says he wants to do something as crazy as that. Gio, did your cable cut out right after that or something? You know how that ended, right? I'm feeling like Gio is going to be his own worst enemy, probably target one of the bigger players on his tribe early, and get rewarded with a pre-jury trip for all his trouble. Next, let's look at 42-year-old pediatric nurse Lindsay Carmine, winner of the Chrissy Hoffbeck Award for most likely to break the mom stereotype. Yeah, the Chrissy vibes are off the chart here in the best way possible. Women over 40 on Survivor tend to get pigeonholed into the mom role of tribe caregiver. And while you might think that Lindsay, the oldest woman on the cast and a woman whose job is literally caring for others, might do so as well, but by her own admission on Survivor, she's doing it for Monica. For Lindsay. I'll just say it, I think Lindsay is going to be a force in this game. Since she started applying for Survivor 20 years ago, she helped put her husband through law school, saw her mom suffer through breast cancer, had 2 kids, and she just spent 2 years as a frontline worker in the pandemic. she's a massive superfan, and considering her favorite moment in Survivor history was Denise using Sandra's own idol against her, she clearly appreciates this game at its most cutthroat. Lindsay says she is going to play hard, embrace the fast pace of the game, and have no qualms about backstabbing her allies, and I believe her. Don't sleep on Lindsay. I anticipate she'll be around for the long haul, and I think a lot of this cast will be nursing some blindside bruises when she's done with them. Next is 37-year-old event planner James Jones, winner of the Aubrey Bracco Award for Most Likely to Overuse Metaphors. This is a returning award. Last season I gave it to Omer as I was predicting a lot of animal comparisons, and I wouldn't bring it back if I wasn't certain that we are going to get a chess metaphor or analogy out of this guy every other confessional. James played chess professionally as a kid and won the US Chess Open in his age bracket when he was 12. And even if he didn't want to bring up chess all the time, you know they're gonna make him. People have been comparing Survivor to chess for 22 years. They're not gonna pass this opportunity up. As for James, I think he's going to do very well in this game. Despite all the strategy talk, his strengths are going to be in his social game. I like his strategy of just being himself and being vulnerable with others. He wants to put relationships first, like his favorite players Earl and Cirie. If that's the strategy James goes with, he has an easy path to the merge, but I do worry that he might get caught up in fulfilling the chess grandmaster role. He also mentions planting fake idols and advantages for others to find, which is a dangerous thing to be scheming up before the season even starts. James, leave the risky opening gambits to Anya Taylor-Joy. On to 28-year-old project manager Carla Cruz Godoy, winner of the Shan Smith Award for Most Likely to be an Iconic New Era Villain. I'll state for the record that Carla was in the mix for my winner pick. The hype is real with her, and rightfully so. Right off the bat, I love that Carla applied to the show because she saw a lack of representation for queer women of color. That's super cool. I also love that I'm getting unapologetic villain vibes from her. Carla talks about how she's a great liar and there's no line she won't cross. And usually that would be a red flag that someone's gonna play themselves out of the game. But there's just something about Carla that makes me think she'll be able to pull off some crazy Tony-style game. She recognizes the key ingredients to Tony's game. Beyond all the spy shacks and the idol hustle, he was just fun to be around. I think Carla similarly has just got this effortless confidence that draws you in so she can lie straight to your face, and the charisma to pull you back in after she's backstabbed you. As we saw with Shan, in small tribes, a charismatic, ruthless player can wield a ton of power. That's someone you'd rather be with than against. It would probably be in everyone's best interest to get her out early. Will they? I don't think so. I'm feeling strong endgame vibes here and an Edgic chart full of CPN 5s. Wrapping up the Coco Tribe is 25-year-old warehouse worker Ryan Medrano, winner of the Tai Trang Award for Most Likely to be Extremely Wholesome. I think Ryan's good-natured affability and big heart don't really get conveyed in the written format, which is why I'm guessing he doesn't have a ton of preseason hype. But just listening to him talk, it's so clear that Ryan is a major presence in the best possible way. This guy just has a comforting aura, which I think is going to be to his benefit. He's also got a great story too. He was born prematurely, resulting in mild cerebral palsy, and doctors told his mom he would never walk. Mom said nah, and through his mother and his therapist's commitment over 4 years, he did learn to walk. And Ryan wants to walk himself right into the provider role on this tribe. And I think in this tribe of 6, with a lot of people who want to play very big games, that's a great spot for him to be in. I think he's such a physical necessity that he'll soar to the merge, but he's also got this non-threatening presence that might allow him to sneak by there, too. I'm getting JP Hilsebeck with more charisma and a bigger vocabulary from him, and things like that. Moving on to the Vesi Tribe. Let's start with 43-year-old pharmacist Nneka Ejiri, winner of a classic, thrice-returning award, the Tom Laidlaw Award for most likely to be way too loyal. Congrats to NECA for being our first woman recipient. This is usually an archetype we see for older men. Rudy Bosch, Joe Del Campo, Rick Nelson, Jerry Sims, Tom Laidlaw, Eric Abraham, an older guy who seems like they'd be more at home on Season 3 than Season 43. The kind of player who works hard, picks an ally or two early, and just stays loyal to them throughout the game. They're happy to go to Final 3 with this person and probably lose. This person either goes out in like the first 5 votes or makes the final 5. I'm seeing a lot of this in NECA, but don't take my word for it. She literally says she wants to do the opposite of cheating and backstabbing, and that, quote, "we'll see how that works out." Hey, NECA, that snarkily ominous comment is my job. As for NECA herself, she grew up in Nigeria and immigrated to the US while she had 2 toddlers and a third on the way. She made a life and a community for her and her family in the US, so she clearly has a lot of life experience that will inform her game. I get the sense that for NECA, loyalty will trump all. If she's successful, she'll be a reliable vote for a more powerful player, and if she's not, she'll be one of the first people out of the game. Speaking of really nice people, let's look at 22-year-old grad student Dwight Moore, recipient of the Ian Rosenberger Award for too nice for Survivor. Now, in his defense, Dwight has more life experience than most 18 to 22-year-olds who come on this show. He had a journalism career before he was ever even in high school, and interviewed 3 secretaries of state and a handful of senators as a middle schooler in what I'm sure were very hard-hitting interviews about their favorite SpongeBob characters. Dwight seems like an exceptionally great and humble dude, accomplished at a young age, a Stanford academic with a big future ahead of him, who almost certainly will be an early boot on this season of Survivor. In his interviews, he's saying all the right things. He knows the social game is king, he wants to emulate Wendell, but listening to him talk, I very strongly get the sense that he lacks the killer instinct needed to succeed long-term on this show. He's just really giving me too trusting and too laid back. I'm worried he's gonna get eaten alive. I can totally see him in a situation where he puts way too much trust in the wrong person and they stab him in the back. On top of that, he repeatedly mentions that he has literally no outdoor skills, wants to go advantage hunting early, and then also wants to tell people about his advantages mid-pre-merge. Next is 25-year-old Paralympic athlete Noelle Lambert, winner of the Tiffany Seeley Award for most likely to get an Episode 1 intro package. We're assuming intro packages will return, but Noelle's story of facing extreme adversity in life and not only meeting it head on, but destroying it is exactly the kinda inspirational story Survivor loves to lead their new seasons off with. I love Noelle's why for playing this game. She was a Division I athlete, but lost her leg in an accident. A few years later, she was running track and field at the Paralympic Games. Stories don't get much more inspiring than that. Noelle is on Survivor to represent the amputee community, and she wants to show that people with disabilities are just as capable as anyone else. And I think she's gonna be capable. Expect this woman to be a challenge beast. As for her game, Noelle intends to align with the other physical threats early on to form a sort of meat shield alliance, and that's fine. It's not exactly setting my world on fire, but it seems like a good enough strategy. I hesitantly say she'll make the merge, but I am worried about her socially. Noelle is smart, tough, and confident, and that is exactly how she comes off. I can totally see the other players being intimidated by her and wanting to get her out mid or late pre-merge before she starts to run away with things. I mean, she has a gold medal in the 100-meter dash. Running away with things is kind of her specialty. Next, we're moving on up to 35-year-old elevator salesman Cody Ossenmacher, recipient of the Drew Christie Award for most likely to get his own downfall episode. This guy is like if Seabass took uppers. I love that you can just tell his whole personality just from this one photo. I don't even have to say anything. I mean, would it surprise you to learn that he has a butt tattoo? I mean, maybe if it was like a Tolstoy quote or something, but it's the word live-in. Would you be surprised that he wants his family visit to be Patrick Swayze, but from Point Break? Probably not. Would you be shocked to learn that he says he lives to get radical? I doubt it. Cody wears his codiness on his sleeve, and I think that will either be his biggest boon in the game or his downfall. If his tribe embraces the Aloha spirit, then he could be in it for the long haul as an Aussie-esque provider. If they're looking for his off switch after a few days, I don't think he'll fare well. Either way, Cody will undoubtedly be a major character of the season, probably not as good of a player as he thinks, and fingers crossed, the recipient of a Drew Christie-esque downfall. Next, we're giving out the Sophie Clark Award for most likely to be an unexpected challenge beast, going to 29-year-old cybersecurity saleswoman Justine Brennan. Sophie was kinda written off as a nerd in her first season, yet by the end of South Pacific she had 3 immunity wins against really stiff competition, including a super clutch one against Aussie at the Final Four. I think Justine is kinda getting written off as a pretty face preseason, but I think she's going to be a massive challenge threat. Justine says she's a tomboy in a girly girl's body. Her dad, who immigrated to the US from the Philippines, raised her as the son he never had, taking her dirt biking and fishing. I think that, along with growing up as an athlete, combined with her career in sales, makes her a pretty formidable force in this game. I totally think that being in sales is one of the best possible careers you can have going into Survivor, because you need to be both persuasive and charming in that business. So it really sounds like she's got the physicality and the communication skills that are necessary to succeed in those pre-merge team comps. My only concern? She says she wants to emulate Joe Englem. That's fine, but let's not do the whole Joe trajectory, please. Finally, let's close out Vesi with 30-year-old survey methodologist Jesse Lopez, my pick for the Rick Devens Award for most likely to be the season's final boss. Yeah, I'll be shocked if Jesse doesn't do very well. He's in my top 3 as far as winners go. Jesse's story is super inspiring. He joined a gang as a teen, but ended up going from juvenile hall to getting his PhD in political science at Duke, to owning a house in a cul-de-sac with his wife and kids. His comparison to former Survivor players is an all-time great. He says he's like if Spencer or Christian got jumped into a gang at 15. I mean, that tells you so much about him right there. I really don't see any red flags for Jesse, other than maybe Ghost Island being the season that got him back into the show again. Really, Jesse? I think understanding how voters think will be a super useful tool on anticipating how others will play the game, and I think his history of going from the streets to the world of academia gives him a unique perspective where he can be relatable to almost anyone. The hype is real for Jesse. I'm feeling like pre-merge, all roads on his tribe will lead back to him, and those connections and influence will take him deep into the post-merge. Jesse will be an endgamer targeted by others as a resume builder. Last but not least is the Baka Tribe, and I'm giving the award for most likely to be Facebook's favorite to 52-year-old heart valve specialist, Mike Gabler. Here's a man after Middle America's heart. This guy is all over the preseason promos, and it's easy to see why. He's definitely one of the biggest personalities of the season. I've actually really come around to Mike as well. I initially would have pegged him as one of the first out just based on demographics. He's the oldest player on a pretty young cast. But after studying his profile, I think he could be a major force in the game. Mike favorably compares himself to Jeremy, Ben, and Rupert, and I think those are all really solid comparisons. He's a boisterous, larger-than-life personality who wants to play a loyal, leadery game. He's got the self-admitted rough exterior, but a heart of gold. A player like Mike is the perfect ally. Straightforward and predictable, but usable as a shield. And I mean straightforward. Look at some of these answers. Why do you believe you can be the sole survivor? Yes, Man just gets to the point, doesn't he? If Mike isn't targeted right off the bat for being the oldest guy out there, I think he'll get through the pre-merge and likely end up as an early to mid-merge boot, undoubtedly upsetting every commenter on the Survivor Facebook page for weeks. Next on Baka is 31-year-old clinical psychologist Ellie Scott, winner of the Drea Wheeler Award for least likely to be able to control her threat level. Also known as the Christian Hubicki Award, this is reserved for players who are otherwise A-tier but whose fatal flaw is threat management. Ironically, Ellie got into Survivor because a friend compared her to someone who managed her threat level well, Michelle Fitzgerald. Ellie's job requires that she be perceptive and likable, but I think her fatal flaw in the game will be that she's just so clearly perceptive and likable. I could definitely see her leaning into the social butterfly role too much and getting caught when other players compare notes. Frankly, I think considering our last two winners, it's likely that we're going to see the transparently social players get targeted more and more. Add to that Ellie wants to play a fast-paced, advantage-laden game, and there's a possibility that she plays herself out of the game early. She wants to be the advantage queen and wants to be the leader, and even compares herself to the entire Mount Rushmore of preseason comparisons for women: Kim, Wentworth, Sari, and Sarah. I wouldn't be shocked to see Ellie go far, but I'm actually kind of feeling a shock pre-merge boot here. Hey, she could be the fourth face on that Mount Rushmore instead, alongside Liz Markham, Molly Byman, and Allie Elliott. Prestigious company. Next, let's look at 19-year-old pet cremator Sammy Leotti, recipient of the J.D. Robinson Award for most likely superfan to flame out early. Yeah, this guy is gonna flame out faster than those dogs and cats he's cremating. I'm trying to be nice, but Sammy comes off as not super aware of himself. He says that at first glance he'll be perceived as arrogant, but that's not him. Then he goes out of his way to list all his favorite features about himself. Hey, he says, there's more to him than just great looks. He's also super charming. I think, like every teen who's ever been on this show, Sammy just doesn't have the life experience to be a great Survivor player. That's not his fault, but it is going to be his problem in the game, and I think coming in with an inflated ego is not really going to help his chances at making connections and going deep. The unfortunate fact is, teens in this game just top out at like Michael Yerger. At the very least, Sammy and I see eye to eye on one thing. He says the winner he most identifies with is Chris Underwood. And yeah, I am getting third boot from him. Glad we agree. The Donathan Hurley Award for most likely to win the SIA Award goes to 28-year-old performing arts teacher Mariah Young. Just to explain this briefly, pre-COVID, the musician Sia used to hand out money at the reunions to players she liked, who tended to be your upbeat, rootable characters. It was weird. So in that sense, this was a gimme. Mariah has, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, possibly the most positive energy we've ever seen on this show. If the rainbow hair didn't tip you off, Mariah is unapologetically a massive bundle of good vibes, who says that she seeks to leave rooms brighter than when she entered them. She's also out here playing the game for her late mother. She and her sisters used to watch the show religiously with their mom. I think she's a shoo-in as one of the most popular characters of the season, but I'm worried her energy could be a liability. I think on Survivor, massive personalities like hers can get grating quickly, and I think she could come across as overeager if she starts like singing and dancing at camp. On the plus side, at least Mariah knows she's a lot, so if she can strategically rein that in, I think she'll have legs in the game. She otherwise seems to have a solid game sense for building genuine and loyal social connections. I could see Mariah as one of the first out from her tribe, or I could see her going deep. It all depends on her tribe's tolerance for her aggressive positivity. Here's a tip, Mariah. If you're getting too excited, just think of clowns. Moving on, perhaps my most coveted award of all is going to 30-year-old college admissions director Owen Knight, recipient of the Ricard Foyer Award for most likely to be a him Spradlin. A him Spradlin just has the look, that good at Survivor look. Someone you can just tell is an all-around triple threat from a single glance. I'm happy to admit Owen to this elite club. I gave this award to Ricard in 41, High in 42, and now Owen's got it in 43. This guy is a super duper fan, but Owen isn't your average Survivor super fan. I think he is going to be able to toe the line between high EQ social player, underrated athletic beast, and perceptive strategist super well. Socially, he spends his career talking to students, either convincing them to come to his school or turning them away. Physically, he played football in high school and coaches fitness classes. Strategically, he's even watched the international seasons of Survivor. Come on. Things will have to go completely sideways for Owen to not at least make the merge. Unfortunately for Owen, the him Spradlin look is a blessing and a curse. Down the line, the other players tend to realize how strong of a game is being played, so this kind of player tends to finish in the mid to late post-merge, clipped as a consensus obvious final 3 threat. I'm sorry, Owen, I wish I could call you as the winner. Sometimes I really hate being right all the time. Finally, my winner pick for Survivor 43 is 24-year-old UX designer Janine Zheng, winner of the Sandra Diaz Twine Award for most likely to win it all. Everyone is sleeping on Janine, and I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't be. Janine is obviously a high-achieving person. She graduated from Harvard with honors and is clearly book smart. But if her interviews are anything to go by, she's an incredibly social person, but not in a way that might be overtly threatening on Survivor. She explains how building one-on-one relationships will be key to her game because she just naturally does that in her day-to-day life. I get the sense she's a very active listener. Of all the Kim Spradlin name drops on this preseason, and there are a lot, Janine's rings most true to me. She really seems tuned into the social elements of Survivor in a way that most people aren't. Even her pet peeves are both social faux pas. Janine has the why. She's playing Survivor because it's a bond she shares with her father, who immigrated to the US from China. She understands that as a small woman, she will be perceived as weak in challenges, but she says she'll prove people wrong. And she understands the importance of having a cohesive team dynamic early on and playing for yourself later. I think the best players in Survivor are people who can quickly understand the social dynamics of a room and are most authentically themselves. Janine comes off as the most perceptive and authentic person in the cast, and that's why I think she'll win it all. Although, considering my previous winner picks were Shan and Lindsay, you can actually anticipate that Janine will be completely overlooked pre-game, be a major breakout character and force in the game, only to get a solid mid to late merge finish if history holds true. So, congratulations on 7th to 5th place, Janine. Got nothing else for you. What do you think? Am I right on or way off? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, don't get idled out.